Alright, so here is a new feature that's coming with Howler 9.1. Project Waffle 9.1 will have a feature to create, well, not this is the 3D side coming with Puppy Ray, that's already there. But it is based on arrows. It is based on, actually let me erase this one here. It is based on things like these. Putting little arrows together or something like this, or this one here. And in fact, let me see if I can load the original, load an AVI. Let's do this one here, TikTok 2. Alright, so this is an AVI that I produced with those arrows, and it's really arrow is just a special case. There are other shapes. You see the round end at the bottom on this end, there's the arrow end on the other side, so there's a combination of different things. So there's also the dashed appearance or dotted line and the outline, filling it in different colors, blue and pink and so on. So these are shapes that you can now draw quite easily. Let me show you how to do that. So you know that there are a couple of drawing tools that are specifically made for lines or outlines. This one here, the linear tool, this one here too, but this one is not affected by that new feature quite at this point, so I will skip that. But the regular line tool, typically you would have something like this, right? Wait, that's not the right, let's get, okay, you would get something like this, right? So you would do a line, straight line like this, and then the parameters you have, like the steps, might indicate how much distance you have between where the dabs are, the points of that line. The opacity, the size, a couple of things you can change there, right? So that sort of thing is basically using the current brush, and whatever your current brush was, I mean, if it's something like a totally oil brush and you have it smear along that, there it is. So there is all sorts of things you can do with that. Same thing with the outline. There's the line on the rectangle. If you click it in the upper left corner rather than the lower right corner, because the lower right will fill it, but the upper left will draw the outline, right? And using the smear brush right now. So these are brush related, and same with the outline in the oval sense. So you see the oval outline. And again, it's simply picking that, well, simply, it's complex, but it's taking the current brush, let's take one more, like the thick oil brush, right? And it's using that brush, let's go erase and draw the rectangle outline and do something like this. All right, so that's the mode that we've had for a while. And now there's this new mode for these. You see that you can see the mode is default. Oh, that's the draw mode. But there is a couple of other. There are a couple of other things to choose from. And in particular, let's focus on this one here first. This one is the linear tool. And what you can see with the linear tool is that it can either use the natural media lines that we see here. That's the default. Right, so whatever your natural media is that you have chosen, let's do one more here, like an effect, maybe organic effect with the bubbly starry flowers. There you go. So you see these flowers are now being drawn along the path of your line. And if you have it on a rectangle, there you go, it draws it around the rectangle. And different colors with the right button. You have the oval, you can draw that. So you see that's the natural media mode, right? So here is the new mode. There is a new style. This is, instead of using the natural media lines, you can use the graphical lines. Now these graphical lines, let's toggle to that, they will appear very differently. And they will have a start and an end that you can control. So there's a start cap and an end cap. The start cap in this case is round. Let's go to something like a triangle. And now you see that it's starting with a triangle here too. Let's go and erase this so we can see it better. So now it's starting as a triangle. So there are other shapes that you can use. There's a square anchor. There's a little square at the end or at the beginning, and then it draws the line. It's sort of a graphics rather than a painterly approach here. And there's also the diamond anchor and the arrow anchor. So you can actually do arrows on both sides, double-sided arrows. Now this one's a bit special too, because it has the blue and the red, and that's because we use the line fill mode. If we uncheck this, we have just one color, and that's the red. Alright, so you have a couple of great new ways to create these arrows. And let's see one more. Perhaps that's the round ending. No, that's the starting. Yep, no, it's the ending. So you can do all sorts of different things with that, right? You can choose the color, you can change it, so you can create nice presentation arrows and pointers and that sort of things. Well, I've used that to create arrows and then turn them. So I wanted to show you how to do that. So first of all, I'll create an animation on this initial empty frame. And let's say we want 99 pictures or frames in this animation. And so now I'm going to need to draw an arrow that's like this, but I want it to be starting round, so not an arrow on the start cap. Let's make it round. There it is, round arrow. That's like that. And then I need the end cap to be point arrow. There you go. Okay, that will be the one I'm looking for. Now there's a few more options here. There is the solid, the dash mode is solid right now. We could do a dash. So you see it's drawing a dash. We can also change the size here so that it's a little bit smaller, and that proportionally reduces the length of the dashes also. We could do a couple of other things here. Instead of dash, we could do dots. Let's see here, something like this. Yeah, that looks like fun. And then there is one more, which is the line fill, and we can change the color here and say, let's make it kind of an orange appearance. So there you go. So you have a line fill that's dashed, and you have a round cap at the beginning and a triangle or an arrow pointing cap at the end. Now we want to animate this so that it goes from here all around, like the hands of an analog watch. And we'll do a long one and then a short one, perhaps a fatter one. In fact, the fat one we'll do first, and then we'll do the short one appearing like on top of it. So this one will need a little bit bigger. Let's change the size. Yeah, something like this. Alright, so we need it in the middle of the frame. How do we find the exact middle? Well, one thing you can do is you can go down here on the right side, if that's where you have these extra previews and color swatches, and let's find the grid. And below the grid you'll find options for artist guides. Let's check that. And 2x2 is fine. We have an artist guide going through the middle here, and let's say we want about this much. We don't need the whole picture. We can zoom in a little bit so we get a lot of detail and good definition. And we could actually use I guess some drawing grid and visible grid to make it even easier to snap to that. So it's kind of forcing it to draw to that, but it's now it's in like jumping in increments, and maybe we need to reduce the size a little bit. There you go. Let's see if we can use that. So click on that, and there you go. If you're happy with that dimension, with that size, then just use that. But I'm going to actually do this in a little bit more continuous mode. So uncheck that that option there, and oh, that's not where I wanted it. Let's go erase. There you go. So I'm gonna go precisely on the middle there, and then draw my fat arrow right here, making sure it's kind of as close to vertical as possible. Alright, so that's my arrow. Now I'm going to turn the artist guides off. Actually, I can leave them on. They're not affecting what's actually in this image. And I'm going to capture that as a brush. So use the selection, which is the entire image at this point. Use the selection as a brush. Right, so I can store that also just so we can see it. Store and manage a copy of it. You notice the white background is opaque. It's not transparent. It's not showing the plaid pattern. Alright, so and that's important when we do the second arrow. Keep that in mind. Alright, so now I'm going to rotate that. And so the way I'll do that, first of all, I'll erase it back to white. And now I'm going to go to the animation here and use the brush keyframer. Right, this is the brush we currently have loaded as a custom brush. We could paint with that, right there. And we can also use the brush keyframer to paint with that in a path or in a concerted effort. So what I'll do is, let me zoom in a little bit, keep it over here, and I'll go to Brush Keyframer. And the Brush Keyframer, actually I didn't need to do this, because the Brush Keyframer has its own buffer that it shows here, but it shows me also where the brush is going to go. Right. So I'm going to, initially it's centered right there. Let's not touch that. Let's keep it right there. We could cycle through that. Oh, and right now it has still a memory of transformations I did earlier. So it has the keyframes. I'm going to erase those. Clear all keyframes. There. So now it's back to no transforms. And what I'll do though is I'll change the size to the way I want it. And I'll change the angle to have it point where I want it. Let's say we want it at 9 o'clock here, which is to the left at exactly 270. Let's see if we can go to exactly there, 270 degrees, right? And let's keyframe that. We want to make sure we are on the first frame when you do that. And then we'll do this one on the other end, and we'll rotate it all the way up to 360. Now if you wanted, you could go the other way and it would decrease the value, or you could do a full turn 2 or 3 times. So it's nice, you can actually make some of these go spin faster and some of them spin slower as you need it. So I'm going to go 360, there it is, and keyframe that. And now all I got to do is render that, and let's do that. Right, so this is now rendering. How many frames do I have total? I think 99, 0 to 99. So I'm rendering 100 frames. It's not going to show the update on everything, by the way. At some point it says, okay, you know how it's going, and at the end it'll just be done. Now, however, I forgot one thing. It's not doing a linear rotation. It's doing kind of a spline and a smooth interpolation, but the last one is botched and kind of does a sudden jump here beyond where we wanted it to go. So that's either a frame you will want to toss, or if you don't want to do that, what you'll do is, let's go and undo all this. Let's go and clear the frame and recreate our blank animation frame holder, 99. And what we'll want to do is remember to do the animation. Let's see, Brush Keyframer, there it is. Let's erase everything and then go to the first and store that. Actually, no, not store it here. That'll be the last one we'll store at this angle. And the first one we want to rotate this way. Okay, minus 90 degrees in this case. There. So we go from minus 90 to 0. Right? But most importantly, we go in a linear mode. Make sure you click this, linear. Okay, in this mode, it will be a linear interpolation. It won't overshoot. You want to do the spline interpolation or smoothing, but there's no smoothing needed here because it is consistent, and linear is just perfect for that. So let's go render that. And so now we have this arrow turning from 9 o'clock all the way up to the hour at noon. And again, it's not going, depending on the speed of your system, it's not going to show the update of every frame. Here it actually did because it was small enough and it didn't lose any time on it. And so, okay, so we have this. Now we can look at this animation. Let's turn the artist guides off, and we have a first animation. Now at this point I would say save this, right? Save this as at least a DWA animation, save it right here, or save it as an AVI. You don't want to lose this and have to recreate all this in case this is an important part that you'd like to use for other things, right? I mean, when you think about it, this is an interesting animation that you could use for all sorts of video effects, such as, for instance, you could go, let's go transform 3D perspective and give it some sort of a 3D perspective, and these arrows could all be turning in at the same time, right? So you can do an animation on that. That's one thing that you can do. There are, of course, also my favorite is to transform it through Puppy Ray and go to the Puppy Ray renderer and actually turn this into some sort of a weird 3D thing, right? So let's say we go out a little bit and even more, and perhaps look up to the side. Oh, the fog is very close. Let's make the fog go a little bit farther. There you go. And render that. Let's just do a quick preview render here. And so you see, you can use this to create some interesting illustrations for all sorts of graphics that you might need in many different places. And so it's starting to really show the combination of 3D graphics and illustrative, pointers and markers and arrows and other types of shapes. And let's go and stop this. Let's say we wanted it, actually, if we wanted these arrows to point up in 3D here, we might want to simply invert it and so on. But let's take it further now and do another arrow. Let's do another pointer. So that this was the hourglass, the hour hand. Now we need to do the minutes hand. So we'll go back to the linear tool here. We're still using the same, but we want a different shape. Now actually not necessarily, you might want the exact same shape, but I'm going to use a slightly different shape, different colors also. I'm going to left click on yellow and right click on pink, so I now have slightly different color. So I thought, I need to use the right, so I can use the right button to use these, and this color here is the one I need to change. So let's make it yellow here. Okay, so we have a couple of different ways that we can use to change the appearance of this. Hey, I like this one. Let's go do that. Okay, and we'll make it smaller. So this one is going to be still with the line fill, but instead of the dots, we'll do dashes. Or let's do a solid one for this one, and then we'll make the size definitely smaller, about half. There you go. So now we have a solid arrow here, and it's going to spin by itself. And what we'll do is make it, let's get a little bit of dark blue here. There, let's use this. Okay. So what I'll need to do is simply again enable the artist guide. Right, now I can temporarily dismiss this image here. I'm going to delete this, clear it. I need to clear it. Hold on, I need to clear it. Right click here to clear it to white. Okay, and now I can draw my arrow, and this one is going to go also all the way from the center. There you go, and point it a little bit higher. All right, something like this. Okay, and again we can grab this brush, use selected as brush, pick this up and store it. There, store and manage this copy. So we have one arrow here, and we can paint with this, right? If we go to the brush tool now, we can paint with this, and we can paint with this one, same thing. All right, so let's go back to the original image that we had, like this here. This is part of the animation. Right, and now we want to show this one. Let's enable the preview so we can see it. But where does it go? The other thing disappears because we actually have an opaque brush. So we need to actually color key to make the white part transparent. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll right click on the custom brush selection tool. That also includes the brush keying option. And with this we can choose what part is opaque or transparent. So we pick the white part with the color picker here, and that turns it transparent. You can adjust a little bit here how much low clip or high clip you want, so you don't get any white fuzzies around it. And make sure you store this brush now, store and manage a copy. And so you have this version that has the transparent background. Right, so that one now is visible without affecting the opacity is full. It's visible without affecting the hiding the background of what's already in the image. Alright, so now we can do the same thing with rotating this as we did earlier for the original, for the first hour hand. So this is going to be the minute hands that turns much faster. So let's go to animation and brush keyframer. Right, and there it is. And let's kill the prior keyframes if there were any stored. And we have the original animation going through here, and all we got to do now is make this one do its own turn. So I'm going to store it here save it at the first one, and then I'm going to go all the way to the end and say let's make a full turn, right? Like this. And I don't care that it's not in sync. These are not representing hours and minutes or minutes and seconds. It's just some sort of a dial. And I'm going to keyframe that. And so what you see now is that the hour animation that's in the background is still there. But on top of that, I'm rendering the faster one, and they're going to come in sync right here. All right. So let's go and render that. And again, don't be surprised if for some reason you see this animation stop while it's happening, while it's rendering. Right now you see here ne répond pas, or not responding. Alright, so it's not responding. It's still busy though, and it's still doing the work and rendering, and at some point it'll come back and it'll be done. Alright, let's disable the preview, and now we have this animation with these two hands. And so you can take this many steps further. Right, one thing you can do is go to the key, let's see, to this line one more time and draw. Let's see, this time what I'll do is I'll draw with, I'll still draw it solid. I'll choose the color, let's say pink, and there you go, and left arrow will make it black or very dark. There you go, so a little bit like this. And let's see, instead of an arrow, we'll do a round anchor at the end, and the beginning anchor is going to be changed too. So instead of round, we'll make that I don't know, square. No, that's the cap. Let's make a little square anchor there. Oh, that's the end one. I picked the wrong one here. Okay, so let's do round anchor, and this one will be square anchor. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Alright, so let's go one more time, and we'll make it very thin, very small. There. Alright, so this one, oops, that's too many undos. There you go. This one we will go from here all the way here, perhaps even a little bit higher. Alright, so let's go and zoom out a little bit, as much as we can, and go do the following here. I'm going to animate. Oh, I need to make sure we capture that into the, there you go, draw this like so, okay, and capture this into a brush, and then right click to make this transparent. Make sure we don't get any white fuzzies, so it's okay to clip a little bit lower here, and then store that. So we have this brush, store that. Okay, so we have this hand as well. And so now I'm going to restore the original image or frame. There you go. Here's our animation so far. And I'm going to go to the brush keyframer one more time. This is the third time. And in this case, what I'll do, you see it right here. Here's the purple long thin hand. What I'll do is I'll turn it the other way. So let's go clear the prior keyframes. Let's store the initial one and have it go very fast, but the other way. We'll make 2 turns on this one. And then actually we'll do a few other things, but let's start with this. There, and keyframe that. Now, when you brush through that, when you scrub through that, you can see what it's doing on the animation. Let's make sure we are in linear mode. Okay. But one thing I'll do is I'll have it ping pong. I'll make it look like it's hitting this one and then coming with it. So I'm going to keyframe it here, and then I'm going to go change the angle so it's kind of appearing to stay with the big fat one there. Okay, and so it's doing all sorts of little back and forth, and then here I'm going to go, when it's lining up with this, I'm going to go with it too. So up to here, I'm actually going to direct it to go this way. And you know, the rotation is the only thing we have done so far, but you can also scale it. You can also make it go a little bit faster, bigger. And then you can go back to smaller. You know, bring it back to much smaller if you want. Or, and then also rotate it at different speeds. I mean, there's all sorts of fun stuff you can do with that. And in the end, you'll have it like so. Line it up again, or not, you know. Who says it has to be lined up? Maybe you want it this way. on the very last image. And could be very big, could be very small, it could be disappearing. You could change the opacity here too. Could be fading away. Make sure it's still linear, and boom. So now we have an animation that will look a little bit more wacky. All right, let's go render that. And so here's just some ideas of taking it beyond the usual ordinary pointer. You can make pointers very easily with dashed lines, dotted line, dash dot, dot dot dash. But most importantly, or beyond that, having fun with creating all sorts of weird animations with these. So what I'm going to do is now save that as an AVI. I'm going to call this one TikTok. TikTok 3, we've had another TikTok already here, so this one is TikTok 3. And it's going to play at 30 frames per second. Let's save it as such. Lagarith lossless codec. Because you never know, we might need to work with this some more. And now the magic, let's go get rid of these, don't need these anymore. Now the magic really starts. Now we can do all sorts of things with that. I think what I'll do, I haven't tried mirroring yet. That'd be fun here to enable a mirror. No, you know what? Let's go back to my favorite ray tracer here, Puppy Ray. And oh yeah, we can actually use this as an elevation map, but also as a color map. Since we saved it, let's go select it here as a AVI, open AVI. And select TikTok 3 there. So TikTok 3 is now also in the swap buffer as an animated swap buffer. And then, so here we don't really see a difference quite yet, but what I'll do here on this one is I'll invert it so that bright is going to be dark, and it's inverting the color, applying that across the animation. Why? Well, because on an elevation map, I want the arrows to stick out. I don't want them to be lower, and I want the ground floor down here, the black part, to be the base at the lowest level. So now anything that's brighter than black, namely those arrows, that's what's going to stick out when I look at it as an elevation map. But in the same token, I have the animation on the animated swap buffer, right? So these two are going to be in sync now, and I should be able to render that in just about any at any angle. I'm going to go look at, there you go, Puppy Ray, and you see how it's elevated now, but it also still carries the colors from the original. Now here it's inverted colors, right? These are not the colors it's actually applying. You got the pink here going to light blue. Well, that's green going to orange on the fat arrow. You notice also it's inverted geometrically. That's still a feature in this particular version. So when you see it point to the left 9 o'clock and up, it's actually inverted here. And we could possibly simply turn our head the other way, but yeah, it's mirrored, it's not just rotated. So that's something we have to live with, and if we want to, we could invert the whole thing, so it really still points or turns in clockwise order. Right now it's going to actually turn in counterclockwise order, if we look at it this way. Let's go and work this a little bit with the arrows. What I'll do is I'll go out here. I'll make the light a little bit higher. Like so. A bit brighter, so everything gets to shine on it. Change. There you go. So if you increase the fog distance, you'll see many of these arrows. You'll see much further, and then you can of course take that into all sorts of really funky illustrations. I don't know which way do we want to point it, like so maybe. Let's do a quick ray trace on that. See, and they're all pointing in the same direction, they're all lined up, and then we can actually animate that too. So right now I'm going to use each frame as an animation source, and I'm going to scrub through that and say, for instance, we want to keyframe this one, and then as we go to the last one, maybe we want to zoom in on one of them, right? So this one here in the lower left, for instance, I'm going to need to transform this to get closer. and sometimes that means initially to get farther away, but then I want to move in. There you go. And also turn the angle, the head a little bit, like so. Okay, keyframe that. So now, perhaps we need just the quality. You know, for this demo, for this tutorial, I won't go to very high quality. I'll just keep it at medium quality, and that'll be good enough. All right. And so at this point, you can see the colors are being shown in the preview here. The colors are animated. That's the colors from the animated swap buffer. The mesh itself is not being regenerated on the fly. That takes too much time. So you'll have to do a little bit of a guessing game here. And the first frame has been rendered already, so that one is going to render on top of that. It's going to use this as the elevation map, which of course is not going to look very nice. So we'll toss that first frame. But everything else I think we can use as is. Let's go and animate this, and there you go. So again, the first frame, if we have already rendered this, if we did a test render on that, it's going to have to be ignored. Actually, it looks pretty interesting too. Now, we've seen this in another tutorial. If you do a render from a render, that elevation map gets to look very interesting as well. Wait, this is still too slow. Let's go, oh, because it's actually a fairly large image. Let me go make it just preview quality and not ray trace, but animate that. There you go. Okay, so that's it. We now have an animation. There you go. So here it is. Now we have this animation going through, rendering the moving elevation map, but also tracking with that the moving color map that's in the animated swap buffer underneath it. And so now I'm going to actually render that at high quality. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hope that I have the animation. Let's go. I need to reload that. So load the animation, TikTok 3. All right, that's how I did that. Make sure that the animated swap, well, let's unchoose it and choose it again, just to be sure that we have the same one here. And this one here, the elevation map needs to be inverted. So invert. There you go. And I'm ready to go back into Puppy Ray. This time I will not do the rendering. I know the parameters are already there. I can scrub through that. It still catches the animation I want. It still has use each frame as animation source. I should be able to go, but I want to make sure it's at good quality. I'm going to render this at high quality. You know, final render, it's, well, if you have time, if you have a high-end system, you'll want to do that. Here I'm just for sake of demonstration, I'm going to go with the high quality. That's going to be, you know, still too much. Let's go with medium quality, and that'll be good enough for just this demo. And let it rip. And so at this point, it's going to go through this frame by frame. There's only 99 of them, but it'll make an interesting animation when you think about it. You have all these arrows lined up, and they're all turning like clockwork and animating. And who knows, right? This is something you could use for all sorts of instructional videos or training material or all sorts of, you know, in video forms. So that's that. Thanks to this new feature with the graphical type of brush rather than the painterly brush, you can draw all sorts of shapes, including these arrows, to your heart's delight. And that's coming in Project Dogwaffle 9.1, initially with Howler 9.1, sometimes this December 2013. Alright, thanks for watching.